Hello, and welcome to episode 129 of the Book Binge and part 3 of my 2023 reading tier list, where, as you can see behind me, I've already ranked several things. You can go ahead and watch those first two videos. I will re-announce basically the disclaimer that I can change positions of any book in this list as I see fit as I continue along the series. In fact, last video I did actually do a little bit of rearranging of stuff as I discovered that I didn't necessarily think that things were placed in the right order in certain places. But again, this is also not fully definitive, but I will just go ahead and continue. You can get a little bit more of the background and what I'm deciding to do with this video. In the first one, this is episode 3. You should probably know the rules by now. Let's start off this video talking about Obsidian Murders by Nicole Brona, the pen name of a friend of mine, Nicole Pierman. This one was one that I got an arc of and was, like the second book that I ever got an arc for? It might have been the first book that I got an arc for. I don't remember. I know The Prophet of Vidan was the other one that I got an arc for, which I didn't actually finish all in time before the book actually released, but that's fine. Obsidian Murders was a good book. It was a fun book. It was a very short and quick book. If you're into urban fantasy, if you're into mystery, if you're into that kind of stuff, it is a fun romp and an enjoyable time. Not necessarily a favorite of mine for the year, but it was one that I enjoyed quite a bit, and think it is fully worth someone's time as like just a random palate cleanser, given how short the book is and that there will be multiple of these books in the series. I believe she has 6 of them planned, I think is what she told me when I did a discussion with her a little bit after I read this book. I recommend the series as being like, yeah, read this as palate cleansers when more of them come out. I'm excited to read the second book here probably within the next couple of months, depending on when that releases and depending on when she has that fully ready. But I would put this probably, I'm going to put this just under Prophet of Vidan. Both of these were books that I enjoyed a decent bit for what they were, but weren't necessarily favorites or things that I had maybe a couple of problems with. And this was also happening in a time of my life in like June, January, where I was just really busy with real life stuff, but also spending a ton of time reading. So it was kind of hard to really concentrate on that reading properly, and I think that kind of hurt a couple of these books in hindsight, because this was also the approximate point in time that I read Robinson Crusoe. So it's just, between Malice, Prophet of Vidan, Obsidian Murders, and Robinson Crusoe being all within the same like month or month and a half of each other, that kind of affected the way that I felt about my reading at that point of the year. So that's kind of strange that was. Maybe I just wasn't super into my reading at all, and that's why these rank a little bit lower. But what definitely got me a little bit back into reading a bit was ironically copy editing Tales of the Sun Eater Volume 3. Now, for the record, I did actually read this story collection in a non-copy editing context a little bit later when I reread it for the Anderida Dregs of Empire and Other Stories collection, which we will talk about a little bit later, I believe. Is that what I talk about later? It is, I think. Yes, it is later. But either way, I did get to copy edit Tales of the Sun Eater Volume 3 in June or in July and August, I think, and I really like these stories. In fact, even upon the reread that I did a little bit later, Tales of the Sun Eater Volume 3 is by far the best of the 3 Tales of the Sun Eater collections. They are fantastic, these stories are. And even though it has the least relevant material to the series, the first and the last story, to be fair, are very relevant to the series. The first one makes up something in a scene from Kingdoms of Death that is quite good and that I quite enjoyed being able to read, and the last story is very important for setup for Disquiet Gods as a book 6 of the series. So for the record, Tales of the Sun Eater, you should not be read until after Ashes of Man, but I really enjoyed Tales of the Sun Eater Volume 3, again, even upon the reread, and upon, getting feedback from a lot of the other readers of the series, a lot of other fans of the series as well. Tales of the Sun Eater Volume 3 is greatly regarded basically as the best collection of the series. It's not just me who says that, it's basically everybody who's read all of the Tales collections. It's very good. I'm going to put this at cream of the crop because it is good, and when I did the reread of it, I plowed through that thing. The stories are a little bit longer, but they're really, really cool. Next up is The Great Hunt, second book in the Wheel of Time. You'll see that I put The Eye of the World quite up there because I enjoyed it so much. The Great Hunt I didn't enjoy quite as much as The Eye of the World, I think for mostly nitpicky reasons, but I think ironically it is not like the favorite of the series the way that it tends to be for a lot of people. A lot of people think that books 2 and 4 of The Wheel of Time are the best books in the series, hands down, and I don't necessarily agree as far as The Great Hunt is concerned. I think it's a really good book, which is why I'm going to put it at basically the top of pretty dang good, but it's not my favorite of the series, and I think it is a little bit below The Eye of the World. I think it is a better book than The Eye of the World, but in terms of enjoyment, I didn't enjoy it quite as much as The Eye of the World, if that makes any sense. That is where I'll leave that. Empire of Silence, I did a reread of this, started doing rereads of this after the Empire of Silence Diamond Edition was announced, so I'm kind of rereading the series and doing some other stuff behind the scenes for that. Empire of Silence, I enjoyed and appreciated a decent bit more upon the reread than I think I enjoyed it the first time. But that is to say, I still think it is one of the weakest things in Sun Eater. I'm going to go ahead and put this like here, I guess, like right at the top of Better Luck Next Time. I think I will enjoy this book even more when I get to reread the series a long time down the road with the Diamond Editions because of the improvements made here. But yeah, I really enjoyed Empire of Silence for what it was. And enjoyed it more on this reread, you know, basically because of the reread. It is super solid. It holds up, and there are a couple scenes in it that I hold up as being like favorite scenes in the entire series because of just how I feel about them now in context with the rest of the series. Next up is The Dragon Reborn, third book in the Wheel of Time, which is my favorite of the series so far, which kind of indicates where I'm going to go ahead and put this. I'm probably going to go ahead and put this like, I don't know, I'm probably going to put it like right here. I'm probably going to put Count of Monte Cristo just above Kingdoms of Death here. That's probably a good spot. I'm going to move couple of these things around as well. But Dragon Reborn is definitely my favorite of the Wheel of Time so far. It kind of wrapped up that first trilogy of Wheel of Time, so to speak, in ways that I really enjoyed. The climax of it was fantastic. I love that the entire book cultivated that climax. The reason that the end and the resolution of the book works so well is because the first 2/3 of it was specifically leading up to that moment, not just like doing their own things and then eventually got to the climax. Like, no, they were for the climax specifically, which is part of why I don't love The Shadow Rising as much, but we'll talk about that next week. I just really enjoyed The Dragon Reborn overall. I think it is fantastic. Howling Dark, I did a reread of as well, and I also think that it holds up quite well. There are also some very fantastic scenes in here. There are some scenes here that foreshadow things for later in the series that I never noticed the first time around, where it was like, I think this is important, but I don't know how or why, and rereading it now, I'm like, yeah, I know exactly why that's important now, and it is fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and put this right here, just under Ashes of Man, because Ashes of Man and Howling Dark are my two favorite in the Sun Eater, and they're basically tied for that position, so that is where I'm going to go ahead and place those. Next up was The Dregs of Empire, which I did that Anderda edition, The Dregs of Empire and Other Stories proofread. I did do that. So The Dregs of Empire, this was how I got to read that book for the first time. And Dregs was very good. This is the only book that rivals Kingdoms of Death in terms of dark material. Not just the dark material, but also in kind of tone and theme. It doesn't feel as dark as Kingdoms of Death, but it almost feels as dirty in certain ways. And it is very good. There are certain things about the ending that are super exciting and also super depressing, and certain aspects of the book that make me very curious for how it is going to play out in Disquiet Gods and the future of the series. I really enjoyed The Dregs of Empire, and forgive that this is the older cover for the book. I can't find my copy of the revised cover for some reason, but there is a better looking cover than this one is, with the yellow text and everything. But this one I'm going to put, I'm probably going to put it here at very dang good. Or a cream of the crop rather. Dregs of Empire is fantastic. It is, I kind of put it as like my honorable mention alongside Ashes of Man and Tales Volume 3 for, my favorite stuff that I read this year. The question of whether I enjoyed Dregs or Tales more, I don't know. There was a lot more stuff in Tales that I enjoyed, including Daughter of Swords, the last story in that collection, and Gutter Ballet, which are favorite short stories in the entire series. Dregs of Empire is the best novella. Tales of Sun Eater is the best story collection, so really, if you enjoy Sun Eater, there's no reason not to read these two, quite frankly. Next up, I did Night of the Mannequins, my first Stephen Graham Jones book, and although I didn't love it upon finishing it the first time, I would probably put it somewhere around here or so, like it was a good book, but maybe I didn't love it, the way that certain things played out, or I didn't love the resolution of certain things, and I wasn't expecting and didn't love the direction that one aspect of it went, and I still feel that way, but the more that I think about this one, it is the opposite of Wuthering Heights. Rather than enjoying it less as time has gone on, I've enjoyed it more as time has gone on. And if you watched the reading vlog that Murphy Napier did, where she covered this book alongside Something Wicked This Way Comes, so sometime in October, I believe that video came out, she really enjoys Out of the Mannequins. She also did, I think it was a half-hour long spoiler discussion on the book, for a book that is like 130 pages, and those are very small pages with very little words at that. It is a tiny book, but she still managed to talk that long about it. And those videos that she did on the book made me think about the book in different ways that further made me appreciate the book even more than I thought that I already was starting to. So I definitely got to put this up there. I think I'm going to put this at the top pretty dang good, because although there are some certain things that I think I still take issue with, I've started to look at it a little bit differently in ways that I'm really happy that I came to be able to do. It is a really good book, and definitely my favorite Stephen Graham Jones so far. Next up is another very short book, At Night, All Blood is Black by David Diop. This is a World War I set story with a little bit of dark and sort of bloody material that occurs in it. But a lot of the material that made this book so good for me was the fact that it is basically literary fiction written in the 21st century, which doesn't really happen very much. This book forces you to think about it, especially the last few chapters, and although you can read it without doing the analysis, I think if you really want to get everything out of it, you kind of have to think about it. You have to analyze it to really get what it's trying to give you out of it entirely. As such, I really enjoyed doing that. I did a 30-minute reading diary, so basically a spoiler-filled reading vlog, essentially, of this book after I finished it, kind of throwing out my theories, my interpretations for certain aspects of the ending, because I wanted to do that, because I felt like I needed to talk about it, and I didn't want to make that, like, its own, like, very long section in a spoiler-free review that would make it more of a spoiler review than a spoiler-free review, because the analysis would take too long. So I decided to do that. In fact, the spoiler-free review should be coming out sometime this year. I don't even know. I don't even know what the schedule is, actually. It might have already come out. I don't even remember at this point in time. But I really enjoyed At Night, All Blood is Black. I'm going to go ahead and put it probably down here or so, somewhere around the 20,000 Leagues section. I just really appreciated that it made me think. And although there are certain aspects to it that are a little bit annoying, such as certain repetitive phrases throughout the book, those actually enhance part of that analytical aspect of the story. Now is my favorite book that I read this year so far. And by favorite book, I mean least favorite book by far, because Cormac McCarthy's The Road is not good. The dialogue is bad. The world building was, it was okay. There were points at which it was really good. There were certain scenes that were pretty decent overall, but the characters I could not get attached to, and like I said, the dialogue was really bad, a big reason why I couldn't get attached to the characters. So I just did not enjoy this book very much. Because there were a couple scenes that I enjoyed, and therefore certain aspects that I enjoyed a little bit, I'm definitely putting The Road at the very bottom of this ranking, because, yeah, it was not good. I did not enjoy it at all, and had me, like, I don't want to read McCarthy anymore, was what I thought when I read the book. But next up, we'll talk about the last book in this ranking here, The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This one I didn't enjoy quite as much as Night of the Mannequins, but I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would based off of the reception. This is a very divisive book in that plenty of people who've read it think it's pretty good. A couple people really like it. A couple people don't like it very much, and a couple people absolutely loathe this thing's existence. I don't know if that sentence made sense, but The Only Good Indians I think is a lot better than it is not. And although part 3 for the most part is pretty weird, parts 1 and 2 I really enjoyed, and even the very end of the book, the end of part 3, has a resolution that I think tied the whole thing together in ways that were pretty good, even in spite of part 3 mostly being pretty strange. And the fact that I like basketball a lot, and like watching basketball, means that I didn't actually hate some of the more basketball-centric scenes too much either. And I think this is probably the best example of Stephen Graham Jones's writing that I have read so far. With that being said, I think I'm going to go ahead and put this in pretty dang good. Not necessarily super far up there, but I will probably put this here or so. I think I would be not unlikely to reread The Only Good Indians at some point someday, but I'm not sure if I will, because a lot of my issue with it just comes down to an element that takes place throughout the entire story, so who knows if that would ever happen. But with that being said, that was the very last entry in this part of the tier list. So thank you guys for watching. I'll be back next week on, what is it, the 1st of February, with the last one of these tier list videos, and then you'll basically have my entire tier list ranking for how I felt about everything I read throughout the entirety of 2023. But like I said, that will be next week. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys then.